Yes, we are live on Facebook. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Friday 5 p.m. session with the 3 million for the Poetics Festival. It's been a week of events, so all can be found again on Facebook. But this time we're going to talk about COVID, businesses, local owners, and the impact. So firstly, I'd like to present you our speakers for tonight. So I'm just gonna go to my list. So I've got Bill Boorman, Jurga, Zilinskiene. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name very well. I'm not very good in English either, French. Kuseva, and Luís, Rita. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually let you introduce yourself as a person and introduce yourself as a business owner. So talk about your business, and then we'll go into the questions. The session will last for an hour, and hopefully by the end of the hour, we would have had a really nice conversation for the enjoyment of the audience. So if we start with Bill, I don't know why I've got this order, but just it's a random order. So Bill, you first. Please unmute yourself, Bill.
That's probably a good idea to unmute. I'm Bill Boorman. My background is I'm a recovering recruiter. So I've worked 35 years or so in and around recruiting. The last 16 years I've run consulting with technology companies, VC startups, and conduct quite a lot of research in the market as a one-man global business. A lot of my time is spent in normal life at conferences, presenting papers and producing content. And for the last 14 months, I've run my business, but also been working with the homeless population in Northampton for the last 14 months. So that's me.
Thank you, Bill. Jurga, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jurga Zilinskiene, CEO and founder of Guildhawk. So we are tech-led language business. We are also operating globally, similarly to you, Bill, so we know how it all works. So on our side, we actually started business, I started my business 20 years ago, so I have been running it for quite a while now, and which started like a short-term type of business that I thought I'll do something else, actually ended up being my love of my life. So what I get to do, I get to work with fabulous linguists from all over the world, with brilliant clients from all over the world, Bloomberg's, PwC, BE Systems, and even our attraction was TikTok. So we get to work with these fabulous brands. But most importantly, where my passion is as well as language, is technology. So I'm a geek. I code. Well, not as much as I used to do now, because I have to run the business and my board is not very pleased when I'm coding and I'm not running the business. So I'm just doing that at my lunchtime. So all weekends. But on the technology side of it, we work closely with various organizations, including universities. And we're very much using, I know it's cliche, everybody's saying everybody's using AI these days, but we actually do. And we are venturing out into GPT-3 type of technologies and really groundbreaking stuff, including avatars as well. So the language industry is not like it used to be. And Google Translate was just the beginning. And now we really set off for phenomenal growth in tech and language and globalized businesses. So really pleased to be here today and meet everybody and share my experiences with you.
Thank you very much, Jurga. Thea, that's your turn to introduce yourself and tell us all about your business, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here and meet everybody. So yeah, I'm Thea. I am originally from Bulgaria, but I have been living in the UK since 2010. I came here initially to study in university, did an event management degree, and then started working. I've worked for Google, and then 4 years I was at Apple before I started my business. So that's once again event production studio, crafting future events. But we are not the typical event agency. We wouldn't necessarily look for clients to kind of like organize their events. What we specialize in is turning event ideas into unique global brands. So that each of these event brands has its respective identity, social media following, industry partners and suppliers, and of course, just kind of like innovative event content. The sectors that we currently operate in, I would say a lot of it is the Microsoft Excel industry. We're a Microsoft Excel, Microsoft partner. So Excel, financial modeling, we will be actually going into a little bit of AI as well, and just that data science in general, to organize a few master classes coming up this summer. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where we currently are, looking forward to the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. Last but not least, Luís.
Hello guys, my name is Luís. I'm Portuguese. I'm 25 years old. I studied biomedical engineering when I was in Lisbon. And then last year I did a Master of Research in Biomedical Research, Data Science stream in Imperial College London. I developed 2 projects. One was in anti-cancer nutrition that I continued to PhD this year, and a different one. So the first one, computational medicine. The second one was in public health, where the goal was to identify the areas of high risk for cyclists in London. And when I met Miguel last year, he had a bad bicycle accident while he was cycling in Portugal. After coming out of the hospital, he knew about the project that I developed during my master's. He contacted me and he told me about his story, and we started working together on a startup that later on we called the Cycle AI. We co-founded it, and we generalize the goals of my master's project, and we are trying to apply it globally. So not only we are trying to identify these dangerous spots, as well as we are developing something similar to autonomous driving, but for micromobility vehicles, such as bicycles and scooters, where we are able to scan the surroundings and in real time to perform some type of actions in these vehicles, and like this to make the cyclists avoid many of the risk factors that are still widely in our streets. This is the presentation about me and the project. It's heavily empowering bicycle riders to fight for their own safety. And the way we do this is that we gather data in our website. We ask users several questions, and we use this data that we get from the users to train our AI model to predict the dangerous spots, as well as to validate the tool later on.
Thank you very much, Luís. So I've got a question for all of you, and we're gonna take turns. And if you want to react to someone else, kind of raise your hand. The first question: has COVID impacted your business? And so very broad question. So I'll start, I guess, we're gonna go reverse. We're gonna do this round. So first, Luís, kind of, and then Tia, Jurga, and Bill. So what's been the COVID impact on your business, Luís?
COVID had a definitely positive impact in the business. Not only people are much more aware of the climate change, and not only people are more aware of the climate change, as well as how infectious diseases can spread in closed and small environments. So by promoting cycling, we are decreasing the emission of greenhouse gases and tackling one of the most important 21st century problems, as well as by taking people out of crowded public transports and getting them outdoors, cycling in this case. It's a way to avoid the spreading, not only about COVID-19, but also other infectious diseases. The flu, for example, is one of them. that people tend to underestimate, but in the winter season, it's something has a very negative impact especially in elders. And in that case, people are much more willing to support projects that promote this active mobility. So in our case, being an active mobility solution, we have been able to establish much easier partnerships with municipalities and companies that are very interested on getting their customers riding more and doing it in a safer way.
Thank you, Luís. Thea, what's been the COVID impact on your business?
I think for us as an event production company, it's definitely impacted us massively. And I think in the beginning of 2020, everything that we had planned was supposed to take place in person. And we actually had a very big conference planned for last April that was supposed to happen at Olympia London, with a lot of people coming from like abroad as well. And then it was around, I guess, the 10th of March or something that everything started and some restrictions were being introduced. And then we kind of like started realizing that what we want to hold is probably not going to happen, or at least not in the way that we wanted it to happen. And it was actually very interesting in the beginning because, for example, with the at one point we had to make an announcement out, and we had to kind of like say, well, the health and safety of everybody is our biggest responsibility, and we would actually be postponing the event. But then at the same time, for example, from venue point of view, we were still under contract, and until, for example, the government bans all the public events, there's nothing that you can kind of like do about that. So we postponed it before we knew whether we were even going to get out of this contract. Anyway, I mean, things, I guess, started getting worse in terms of the pandemic. So we did end up, the kind of like the UK government did say that there weren't going to be any like conferences or exhibitions taking place pretty much for the whole summer. But yeah, I mean, we actually postponed it twice, first for the autumn, then for February. It finally took place this February, but it took place virtually, as I guess it was all, again, the situation hadn't changed that much, and we were once again under like very strict lockdown conditions in February. So in the beginning, everybody was very skeptical because everything that we started organizing was going to be held virtually. And sometimes it is a little bit difficult to convince somebody that a virtual event can be, as kind of like as effective, as exciting as an in-person event. And I think everybody would like agree, even if you just compare, like a live concert or a live sporting event with a virtual one, just watching it, there is a difference. So we had to introduce like a lot of changes. We invested in a couple of event platforms that are specifically designed and built for virtual events. And there was this one called Alive that's the first to integrate things like AI, VR, XR, something extended reality, avatars as well, and really bring an experience where people can feel fully like immersed and as if they're part of it. And there was an interactive lobby and auditorium and exhibition hall. So a lot of the things that we wanted to hold, we managed to do it, although it was virtual. So yeah, I mean, I would say, yes, it did hit us hard, but then at the same time, we used some of the partnerships that we had already built as part of the planning stages for some of the events to, for example, come up with another big conference that is now taking place every year, just virtually. So, we kind of like try to gather the community together and work together with our partners to kind of like, try and continue running our businesses, because a lot of them were, yes, majorly impacted.
Thank you, Tia. That's really interesting. We'll drill down a bit more, I think, on this, because that's the impact about how you deliver your service, but also there'll be an impact on the profit and loss of the company. But maybe we can go back a bit further on this later on. Jurga, what was the COVID impact on your business?
Oh my goodness, we started well before Tia actually, because we trade with China. And we had massive focus actually a year before on the Southeast Asian market. So it actually turned out to be blessing in disguise, because what happened with us, obviously we had language business and we have global clients, and the global clients had very prominent presence in Southeast Asia, because everybody was looking towards that side of the business. And we had major projects about to start. So we had in a pipeline, I think about 16, 17 projects worth a lot of money. And most of them were put on hold, including actually London Symphony Orchestra. So this was a very exciting project, and I'm hoping that one day it will actually go ahead, because they have a fabulous product and they had all the approvals from the Chinese government, and hopefully it actually will come back, because as we know, COVID impacted lots of businesses, but especially from the art side, and it's really heartening to see so many artists struggling. So and we work with the artists a lot actually. So on our side, so when I said blessing in disguise in a way, because we actually prepared ourselves well before everybody else in Europe. So we noticed the impact as early as January. Initially, we couldn't put a finger on it. We couldn't understand exactly what's going on. We could hear some kind of virus going on far, far away. What's going to happen? But of course, we know that how quickly China reacted to the virus. So what we did actually as a management team, we started preparing plans probably at the beginning of February, seeing how it's evolving and how it's expanding and what's happening actually, how it's basically growing. And we knew that, well, it's going to reach us eventually. So by the time the pandemic reached Europe, we were semi-ready. And when it reached England, we were very ready, because we were absolutely working remotely. So from working 100% in the office, so we had teams, we had some teams working remotely as well, but we didn't really consciously work. So we very much, you glued to your desk environment, you start at 9 o'clock, you finish at 5 or 6 o'clock, that's it. So we're sort of hardcore, office people in the city of London. We had a growing office and in Sheffield as well. And Lithuania and some other parts. So then obviously we can't go into the office. We realized very early on. So straight away systems started to be scaled up to make sure that we can actually work remotely. And we moved to work remotely about a week before the national lockdown, because we tested it. It worked. I asked the guys, would you fancy to continue working? They said, yeah. Nobody fancied commuting into London during this mayhem. So we all started working remotely, and the teams were darlings and brilliant. They actually really, really take this seriously. And we had no issues with productivity working from home. We had also, I think probably one of the reasons we didn't have any issues, because we really sort of sat down and we thought long-term at the beginning. So we were making decisions, I would say, post immediate reaction from around March, long-term, a year in advance. So already we knew we're going to working from home for a year. So we started negotiation with our leases, with our leaseholders and everybody else. And we can talk about the government support a little bit later. But we sort of took that long-term decision. So whatever's going to happen, it looks serious. Let's see what a year will look like. So we put staff well-being program. We had our regular catch-ups. Even till today, I'm doing every Wednesday my 15-minute gig with the team, explaining what's going on, the communication from senior level to middle level management to lower level management, making sure that people know exactly what's going on. As soon as we know something, we communicate with the people communicate back. Very close communication with our customer base as well. What's going on there? How can we help? We had situations where some of our clients couldn't pay the bills in time and things like that. So we had to implement new type of or strategic payment systems and things like that. So a lot of work is happening. And in the meantime, we're thinking, right, post lockdown, what the world is going to look like. clearly technology side of it looks like it's going to stay. People love working remotely, and actually we did the survey 2 months into the working, so we surveyed all our people saying, how do you feel about working from home? What do you need? How can we help? So we put the structure in place, put the support, put the catch-ups, regular things, and communication side of it. And then they said, you know what, we're going to continue working, it's fine. We can do that. And then looking post-pandemic, said, right, what kind of skills will we need in the future? So clearly working in the digital space, we were going through a transformation. Actually, we did quite a bit of transformation, three-year plan we had just before the COVID started, the pandemic started. So, so we were just in the middle of implementation of that. And then we said, okay, right, so let's start the new plan. So what we're going to do, so all our guys went to school. But not just any school. They went to Kellogg's Management School. They went to Harvard. They went to London Business School. So all these kind of educational stuff that we did, preparing for the future, actually looking what's going to be happening next. So, and I think that long-term approach, engagement with the people, trusting the people to do the right thing, negotiating with our suppliers early on, I think that would really, really helped us. And we took a bad hit. We had 50% down in our revenue at the worst point, but that was only lasted for 1 month. And by September, we were back to where we were, if not bigger. So, but then this long-term decision-making process really helped us to go from dip up again, communication with the clients, when we kind of got used to what's happening in the global economy, where the decisions are making. So we saw clusters of clients where they stopped spending. We saw clusters of clients where actually, if anything, they invested even more. So it's just aligning those expectations moving forward. So moving forward now, looking back, yes, it was a bit ugly time, I think, for everybody, but it was what it was. We still had food on our tables, we still were warm, so we can't complain too much. So yes, it is very upsetting to have lost so many lives. That is very upsetting, but in the meantime, I suppose from the business point of view, we did as well as we could. Sorry about mumbling quite a bit.
Okay, thank you very much. And lots of insights, really interesting. And you're right. No, let's not forget that over 120,000 people have died in this country because of the pandemic. And if we had planned it, we'd have said, no, that's not happening. We would have carried on doing business as normal, but we couldn't. So that's a very good reminder. Bill, what was the COVID impact on new business practice? You are still muted. You are still muted, Bill.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I was saying, basically it changed everything and nothing. So in my normal business life, I would spend 7 months of the year on a plane. So I'm a consultant, so that historically that's always been a very much face-to-face business. I work in the technology space. I work globally, and I keynote something like 70 conferences a year. And attend about 100, as well as I've got my own events. We have about 100 events, unconference events a year. So everything I do was in person, and involved travel, involved getting on a plane or going somewhere. And then obviously almost immediately that stopped completely. Now the thing is, none of the work stopped completely. The work still needed to be done. We just switched to doing that digitally instead of in person, and that's had a lot of positive impacts. But it turns out that a business that I would be traveling and be away 3-4 days a week and be putting in a lot of hours, turns out I only need 7 or 8 hours a week to run my business. Financially, start of COVID, a lot of the businesses I work with advising are startups or investment funds. So I put a 20% hit on all of my billable rates immediately, like before everything started. I saw it come in and said that's what we'll do. But because I haven't been traveling or anything, I actually have a lot more cash. So I work a lot less hours and make a lot more money, which is kind of nice, I guess. And feel bad about telling people that it's been a very successful period of time. Same time, it also gave me back time. I'd never done any kind of big social. I didn't go to university. I didn't have a year out working in orphanages or anything like that. So I went straight into doing between 30 and 50 hours a week working with the homeless, and through the business we set up a charity to fund that, and raise, and we cooked and took meals out to the homeless. So I've had a year or so really to work on a passion project, which I never would have done. And at the same time, the work I do has become more critical because it's around digital transformation and takes a lot less time. So it's kind of turned my world upside down. But from a business point of view, I'm doing the same thing, the same work, and I think probably better work in the actual work than I was doing when I was traveling. The only thing we're missing is spontaneous creativity that comes out of spontaneous conversation, usually in a bar or somewhere, that creates some great business ideas or recruiting ideas. I miss people, and miss something of not being with people spontaneously. But apart from that, I'd say, you know, business in itself, both financially and practically, is a much better thing. And I feel a bit guilty saying it's actually been. I've done the opposite. I've been out every single day since the first lockdown. From the first lockdown, I've been out every day doing something and working with Public Health England and stuff. So I've had an opposite experience to most people, and I feel a bit guilty saying actually the business has been really more successful in cash terms.
Well, thanks, Bill. And I know any crisis is changes. So some people will find that actually their business will benefit from a crisis. And I think that it means that the next questions won't be really relevant to you, but much more to Jurga and Thea, I think. And COVID has been a big disruption for business plans. We couldn't plan it. And when you run a business, you like to do lots of planning, especially on the financial side, but not just the financial side, operational side, strategic side. So my question to you will be, have you received any COVID-related support, either from your local council, where you're based, or the local Chamber of Commerce, or the government? And do you think that this support was adequate? Not just mean financial support, it can be also practical, operational support.
Mm-hmm.
Thea, you're on the screen now. So Thea first, maybe Jurga. I don't know whether that applies to you, Luís. So Thea, you start.
Mm-hmm. So to be honest, we haven't received that kind of like a lot of support directly sent from, let's say, the government or the local government straight to our business. What happened is we did apply for something that was called like COVID-19 bounce back loan, which was just through kind of like our bank provider, and that got pretty much, yes, reviewed and accepted very quickly, which I think worked out quite well. So from that point of view, because I think our main issue in the beginning wasn't so much with the whole annual forecast in terms of kind of like income and revenue. It was a little bit more on the cash flow side, because we had already committed quite a lot on venues and things like that. And that is usually the biggest expense for somebody organizing a conference. So this is where it really, really helped. I think one area where it's been a little bit more, I would say, just uncertain in terms of like what applies to us and what doesn't, has been the VAT reduction. Because I know there was, for the whole pretty much hospitality industry, they announced that VAT was going to be cut from 20% to 5%. But then what ended up happening is that was applicable more to events that, for example, have some sort of an admission, live admission. So it didn't, I mean, we did remain at our 20%, regardless of, the fact that we are an event production company. We have been quite hard hit by the pandemic, but because we continued organizing our events virtually, and people were still able to kind of like join that, although it was postponed in the future, I guess that wasn't really applicable. So that was, yes, probably the biggest kind of gray area where possibly we could have been benefited. But yeah, there's been a lot of discussions and support from the event communities and associations. They have been, at one point there was even like a few companies that would just go in front of the Houses of Parliament and protest and talk about the events industry and how they should be like helping a little bit more. So I think there was, yes, initially some like positive response. There's definitely a lot more that could have been done, but I think that, yeah, you kind of like work with what you have, and you try to take advantage of the the opportunities. We were still able to like hold a lot of our events online, so we weren't kind of like completely like ruined. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jurga, so what's your assessment of the support that was made available to business, and was it adequate?
I suppose the question of adequacy is always the tricky one, because I don't think that anyone gets adequate support anyway. We ask and then we pray and hopefully we get. So from our point of view, actually, when we started to plan how we should be organized as a business in pandemic environment when business cannot operate any longer. So we actually looked at every single stakeholder, including the government support, of course. So we looked at our supplier base, we negotiated with our landlords, we negotiated with local authorities, but unsuccessfully, because we had to pay our rates. That was it, because we were above the average was set, and obviously being in the City of London and it's combined as well, there's no way, and they were insistent we pay the rate on time. Private landlords in London, surprisingly, were very accommodative, and I was actually very touched because we had 2 floors in London, in the City of London. So we were allowed to keep only one, continue paying, and then eventually we got out of the lease by September, which was actually very, very generous, and I'm absolutely touched. That was unexpected. Sheffield is a different story. We had to pay everything, and there was no negotiable, no reduction whatsoever. Government absolutely shut us down because we were planning to have about 250 people they employed. And because of this behavior, probably we'll think twice now. And do we actually need an office now? Well, no, that is for sure. So we are actually, what happened now in the hindsight, by local authorities not helping businesses, they really think, well, if they pushed us to extreme level, to think really twice or 3 times whether we need or not to be physically in the office. We will continue having a space for the team, for the creative work, like Bill said, which is very important. We will have regular meetings. We will have it at the clubs, at the pubs, at whatever is required, but we will not be going into the office, not in the foreseeable future. Maybe things will change. But having now in the hindsight, governments thought a little bit more deeply about the situation. I think they would have retained more tenants actually in the City of London, as well as the other places as well. But in the meantime, actually, we did get engaged with the government in terms of support. I was writing to the Prime Minister directly, and especially about the potential that before even the B-bills and C-bills loans were given to the businesses, I've written to the government, signed by quite a few different businessmen and women as well, about transparency. Because it's all very well about giving loans to people, but now we can see what's going on at the moment with the Cameron situation, and so many unusual characters getting the loans and so forth, that actually, just buying cars and what have you, and then not supporting the businesses that were in a dire straits. And actually, we will need more support. It's not over yet. We're just starting, we just need it. So I was actively involved in lobbying government as much as I can. And that's, I keep saying and it does work, actually. It takes time, it does work. I got notice. Things are starting to go into the press and various kind of things. It does work. That's how accountability. That's what I was excited about actually being here on this panel today, because I think business and politics and people often think, oh yeah, what can I do? You know, a bit of shouting in front of the Downing Street or something, would it really make the difference? Well, it does. It really does. Just need to make sure that we actually group together and write something to various people, and it does happen. So we actually, as a business itself, we received CBILS loan, which is the higher level, because we had a slightly bigger turnover, again, the impact on cash flow. So we don't know how long we'll be in the position where we actually need the support. So we applied for that. Again, Barclays Bank was incredibly supportive. So we have very good relationship with Barclays Bank. So they were very understanding, accommodating, and really, really gone out of their way to help us out. Then we used also furlough when our revenue dropped, but then we brought people back. So we used furlough system. Again, making sure that we're using it responsibly and when we really, really need it. And we applied for a grant because we do work with technology and redeveloping new systems. So we actually came up with something that potentially we could have developed. Actually, it is turning into a product now. It's not grant funded because we didn't get, unfortunately, because I'm sure lots of businesses have applied, so we're not successful. But at the same time, this particular plan is actually now being actioned and we're building a product itself. So I think from that point of view, government, I'm sure, tried to do as much as they could at the time. Controls were a little bit lapse. I really, really would like to see now government actually upping their game in terms of the control, because we'll need more support than we needed before when we start rebuilding the economy responsibly instead of speculating. So we really, really need to start investing in the businesses like Wonderful Tea is here, and like Luís actually, and Bill. So these are real businesses that really need the support.
Thank you very much, Jurga. Really, really interesting when you talk about needing support and having to lobby government to make sure the support is adequate. I think we'll go back to this point in a minute. Luís and then Bill. So in terms of support, did you need any support? Do you feel the support was adequate, or actually kind of it's not something that you needed for your own business?
Starting by myself, I would say that we are still in a phase that we are developing our prototype. So basically, we have been incubated in Portugal, and at the same time, we have been helping all the support from Imperial College of London to actually take this product from the prototype stage until the final product. But unlike some of the other companies that you talk here, we still don't have very well established our revenue streams. We are mostly operating in a base of funds that have been granted to us by multiple organizations and the partnerships that we have been establishing. But again, we are still in the phase that we are developing our prototype. And the impact that COVID had from our perspective was not negative, and mostly very much based on the fact that a big part of our work was already, even before then, remotely. We are 100% software based, and we are now getting into the hardware part. But this is the best answer that I can give you. Everything that we needed, the university, because this was started by me and Miguel, but we have many other Imperial students as well. We have been having all the support that we required from the university itself and from the incubator that we start working with a few weeks ago. This is a different perspective than you guys are giving, because you are already very much well-established companies, unlike us, but we are on our way. Positive aspect that there are many multiple negative aspects that the pandemic had. No one has any doubts about this, but let's try to stick to the good ones and making sure that we don't commit in the future the same mistakes that we commit in the past.
Thank you, Luís. And I think you're right, because in any business, you got a journey, and you're very much at the start of that journey, and so it's interesting to have your point of view and your perspective. I'm going to move to the next question, because I know, Bill, that actually that question doesn't apply to you, because you didn't need support, because you did quite actually very well with COVID, and that freed you time. The next question really is that COVID's changed the way we live, the way we work, and we all learn to work remotely if we could. So will that change the way you work in the future if we start to manage the pandemic in a way that allows us to go back to some types of normality? So Bill, I'm going to ask you first, and then maybe Jurga, Tia, and Luís.
Yeah, so I think undoubtedly it's going to change. The first thing is I was already thinking a little bit about the amount of international travel I was doing from an environmental viewpoint. I remember leaving Waterloo Bridge, having spent a few days there, and then getting on a plane to New York and thinking maybe my life's a bit out of balance. I'm not doing things quite, this isn't quite right to be protesting on one hand and getting on a plane on another. So I was already thinking about this. I think now I don't travel, I don't do as many conferences. My brand is still here. My brand didn't disappear because I wasn't speaking at conferences. So definitely, I'm not expecting to pick that back up, although I will still do some live stuff. I think the nature of the event work that I do has changed from learning is definitely digital. I don't think that will change. I think it's a much better experience, a much more valuable experience. I think the in-person of the creativity and getting people together in smaller groups is something which is going to explode and expand. So, and that's a bit of what I do with the unconference work that I do. So I think my work's going to look very different, and kind of I'm going to let people dictate what that looks like. It definitely would involve less travel. There's no doubt I'm going to be leaving at least 25 hours a week to continue doing the homeless stuff, because I don't want to give up that time now. But I think it'll be a lot less travel, and my customers that I work with are in digital transformation, so more and more of our work is becoming digital, and that's how I foresee. That's how I foresee. I'm very fortunate in that I don't have an office. I don't have employees. I have collaborators and colleagues that I work with on some pretty big stuff, but I didn't have the hit of having to worry about offices and so on. So I don't think things will change. I've always worked from home, so this isn't anything new. This is something I've been doing for. This is kind of like just business as usual, really. But less travel, not traveling, and much more focused time, I think, on the business tasks where it's very focused. It's 1 hour, 1.5 hours, whether that's Zoom, digital, is much more productive. And I don't think I don't think that will change. We won't take that out. I think the learning elements of what I do and delivery of papers and knowledge will be digital rather than in person. And we'll probably do much smaller in-person gatherings, because we'll just enjoy being with people again and chatting and having a beer.
Interesting, Bella. It's very interesting you talk about productivity, because there's been lots of people have been thinking, actually, this new way of working feels more productive in some ways.
Well, I actually don't think it's a new way of working. I think that's a misleading term. I think we're doing the same work in a new place, and that's how we have to think about it. And the reality is, if you look at, I sit on a board of a company in Belgium, and we have a board meeting, a supervisory board meeting every month, and that's 2 days, right, of traveling, get to the hotel, in which that board meeting is actually a 3-hour meeting that we have every month, and is much more productive. So we won't change that. So I don't think we're actually having new ways of working. I just think we're having new places of doing it, and those places happen to be digital. So I think we're wrong to think things are new. I don't think they are. I just think they're a lot more focused and productive.
Thank you, Bill. Jurga, kind of so for you, what do you think is, You already talked about this a little bit. What change will come to your business because of what happened in the last 12, 13, well, for you, it's been longer, 15 months.
Yeah, so from our point of view, we definitely changed, and we changed for good. But we're not drawing a line in the sand and we're saying this is it, this is how we're going to be working. So for next year, we said that we're going to be watching how we are actually functioning. Most importantly is the well-being of people. From my point of view, that's the biggest priority, because some people do like working from home, some people don't. So how do we reach that balance? How do we provide the environment for people that actually can work from home? And there are some people actually, well, quite lucky actually, our people living in okay environments, so they didn't have to work from the ironing board or end of the bed or something like this, because I'm hearing all these horror stories from other business people that I'm engaging and with my network. So we're lucky we didn't have that, but at the same time I'm cautious about not excluding young people, because some people when they work and they live in the same room is not exactly a fun place to be, and you do want to get out and you want to mix with colleagues, and especially for young people. I think that side of it we really need to work out how we're going to replace that office environment, and that's why we're working on an active program to see how we can engage young people and sort of more people with families. They're more happy to be at home, because especially when they have to do the homeschooling. So we're so used to seeing all the dogs and children and cats and all these kind of things joining the Zoom meetings. Is fabulous. But at the same time, when you really think about how it's going to impact on people long term. So I think that side. So we're definitely not going to work the way we used to work before. So we're experimenting with more flexible working, with more job sharing. So we have quite a few mothers working as well. So they found it so much easier. We had 3 or 4 people, 3, I think, yes, 3, 4th is coming back from maternity leave. So which actually was much easier transition than traveling into the office. So from new mothers' point of view, I'm seeing that definitely working from home is a benefit. Again, we had people, you employ Europeans. Some Europeans left the United Kingdom, went back to their country. So we have people moving back to Spain, to Poland, Lithuania, other places as well. So again, having that environment, so they're with their families, they're getting the job. So it's really creating this fabulous dynamic environment. And I think from my point of view, where the challenge would also come in, where the leadership is ready to embrace this new world, whether actually we're ready to embrace this digital world, whether we're ready to have that balance where we do go into the meetings. We shouldn't become hermits and never see anybody, just everybody seen in 2-dimensional video. Absolutely not. Maybe with extended reality, that's a new one. Probably. But I think there will be a big leadership challenge, big government challenge as well, to make sure that we actually have the right regulation, the right employment environment. There are quite a few changes, and I hope that we will use this opportunity to really change and actually organize ourselves around the need of people.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Tia, as an events company, what do you think will be the changes to how you operate your business in the future?
Yeah, so Jurga mentioned, the whole trying to just embrace the work from home environment. I think that this is definitely applicable to us as well. And although, it's like working together in office, it does have its advantages. I think that we will continue working from home. What you mentioned about, yes, just kind of like trying to take the maximum out of it when it comes to people's personal lives as well. I think that that's something that everybody appreciates. And in fact, even when you're based in London, sometimes it can earn you an hour or two just from like logistical point of view, getting in and out of the office, you kind of like don't have that anymore. From new hire point of view as well, there is no more boundaries, so you don't need to be limited just to people that are based in London. You can work with somebody who's really good at what they're doing, but maybe they're based in another country, another city. So that does open a lot of opportunities as well. And one more thing that I wanted to mention, at least from what we have noticed, and I think that it's important to continue doing that in the future, and it is about being creative and working with other people and trying to build and nurture, relationships and new partnerships. Because one thing that we notice is when you face the kind of like a common challenge, people do come together and they do become extremely creative. And some of our best even event content ideas came because of that, and because we had to be really innovative and try to find opportunities for our sponsors and exhibitors and attendees, kind of like how do you keep everybody engaged and interested in what you're doing, even in digital kind of environment. And even from virtual platform point of view, I think that we've been very impressed by what a lot of organizations have been developing. So we will continue holding at least hybrid kind of events, because you do reach more people, you connect, global communities, not just something on a regional level, which is great. And yeah, it's definitely something that we want to continue doing. We even have some events that we'll continue holding just virtually. So yeah, again, trying to take the best out of the situation.
And I think just a very brief point I'd like to make, actually, our productivity has increased by 20%. By 20. We were efficient business before.
Mm-hmm.
But this improvement, it was unbelievable. So then the conversations that we're having that about being office environment as productive space, I think we need to really rethink it. And it's not just Guildhawk. I've had stories like this before, even in manufacturing in some cases, which is very odd, but we're seeing increase in productivity, which is very interesting. And we haven't really started proper digital transformation yet.
It's really interesting, Jurga. It's unexpected consequences of the pandemic, and it's good to have positive stories as well, because it's been a tough time for a lot of people on a personal level. Bill, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something that Jurga said that I think is really important that we do sometimes overlook, and that's the social mobility of remote work, and depending on the type of work and who people are. I work very much in the people space, and the restriction on people in terms of space availability, that it is wealth related in terms of how easy home working is. And I think that's an important point, that we've got to make sure it's factored in, that we don't impact social mobility negatively as we come out of this by really pushing towards entirely home working or focused home working, that we're not blocking off opportunity to people because we're doing that, as much as we're opening up opportunity for others.
Well, thank you. We're going to come to the end of this webinar, so we've got 5 minutes for your final address. And what I'd like you to consider in your final words is, what would be your advice for young people wanting to start a business? And that's very relevant to Luís, actually, because you're actually, in the R&D and product launching time. That must be quite tough in the current period. So what would be your advice, either to people starting a new business now, thinking about a new business? What would you say to them? And just make it your last final address, and then we'll finish in 5 minutes. So Luís first.
All right. So from young people to young people, I would say that at this moment on time, it's digital business have a great advantage over the ones that are very dependent on the physical assets. And the AI is something becoming more and more important, as well as all the data that is associated to it. So I think this is the right moment to come up with business, especially in the digital domain, taking profit of new technologies that were already taught here, augmented reality, virtual reality, 5G. I think this is the timing to start. And but I think the most important thing that I can say, and this applies very much to the 5 of us, is make sure that by increasing the size of your teams, making sure especially when we are like growing a team from 1 member to 2, 3, 4, 5, if you double the number of team members and the amount of work is not doubled, more than doubled, I mean, something is wrong, because at the end of the day, what we want is exactly by doubling the size of the team, making sure that it's not just like the sum of the works of each one that is the end result, but much more than that. And start now, start simple. That's my sentence. Don't wait until having like a final product to actually launch it and to the market. Just start with something really simple. Keep iterating from this point, and listening to the suggestions of people that are already in the market and they are aware about what is missing and what is not. Be flexible enough to adapt your solution, and that's my main advice. Start now, start simple.
Thank you, Luís. Bill, your final words and your advice to young people.
I think two things. One is you don't have to be digital. There's we've all talked digitally because that's where our businesses are focused, but there's a massive surge in craft businesses and creativity and art focused, in a way created by digital, because it's much easier to open up markets. So you don't have to be digital to be a business. The other one is don't overthink it. Just start doing it and learn by doing, because you can never be sure what path your business is going to take, but be reactive to analyze everything and be reactive.
Thank you very much.
And good luck. You'll enjoy it. Good luck to you.
Jurga?
I think from my point of view, I think starting any business, there's never right time or never wrong time. So when you have an idea and you have a passion, just go for it. I started my first business when I was 7, so it's never too early either. So, so when you really think about the environment now, there are so many different opportunities, and absolutely Luís is right in terms of having your ideas sorted and making sure that you're flexible, but that it just goes all the time. So I started Guild Hawk when I was 23. So, you know, by then I already had the experience in trading with the Middle East. I was buying and selling cloth as a wholesaler. So over the Middle East and Lithuania and Russia. So I was doing international trade already. I started that when I was 17, 18. So it's just, I think you kind of, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, the time is always right.
Thank you very much, Jurga. Tia?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially if you're based in the UK, you know, it's not difficult to start a business. There is plenty of information online to get you started. There's plenty of people who can also support you, even websites like Fiverr, you know, where you can find exactly the right kind of people to help you just initiate whatever your idea is and to launch it properly. And then, yeah, just try to be as resilient as you can. There will be a lot of people around you that will be saying, you know, you won't be able to do it, or that's too difficult, or it's not the right time. But I think that if you are really passionate about something, and if you really believe in it, even if you're just by yourself, at one point there will be this other person who will also start believing in you and in it. And then gradually you will be able to, yes, launch that brand. And at the end of the day, you know, I think that starting a business, it is a lot about just trying new things and failing maybe in the beginning, but it is how you learn. The harder it is, I think the sweeter it would be in the future. So definitely try.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, all. Bill, Jurga, Luís, Tia, it's been a real pleasure to have you today for this webinar. I hope you got something from it as well. And that's and then for the audience, thank you for following, for watching either live or on replay. The festival, the Politics Festival by the 3 Million Young Europeans Movement Network, continues tomorrow on Saturday, and you can see the program by accessing the website, the3million.org.uk. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Lovely
Thank
to meet
you.
you. And good luck, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.